Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Job chapter 5 and John 7. And in Job 5, Eliphaz continues his encouragement of Job. Now, I've just recovered from a sickness, and there are some medicines which are good medicines, but they're just totally inappropriate for the sickness that you have. And so, for example, if someone has cancer, you can give them aspirin. Aspirin is not going to help cancer, but it's a very good medicine, but it's not for that application. And it's not that Eliphaz has a wrong theology. He's just applied it wrong. And so this is what he says. He says, affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble spring from the ground. He says, listen, Job, your trouble didn't come from nowhere. It's come from God. And he says, as sparks fly upwards, so it is true of a man who is born in trouble. And he basically saying all men deserve sin, and their affliction comes to them. You've been a sinful man. And then he says about it, he says, their sons are far from safety. This is like a backhanded comment saying, you want to know why your sons are dead? It's because you've sinned or they've sinned. He says, as for me, I would seek God, and I would commit my cause to the Lord. He's basically saying, you're not seeking God, my boy. Happy is the man who God corrects, he goes on to say. He says, basically, this is your problem, Job. God's busy correcting you. Just get over it. And, you of Job's, one of Job's, God's sinful children, Job, God's busy with you. He bruises and then he binds up. He'll deliver you from trouble if you turn to him and you confess your sin to him. So it's not that this advice is wrong. In fact, the very next verse here, Spurgeon preaches one of his most famous sermons. He says, you shall come to the grave at full age, and a sheaf of grain shall ripen in its season. He says, listen, get your life in order, and you will live a long life, and then you will come to the grave like a sheaf in season. Spurgeon, in a very famous preach, took that phrase and he says, this is the death of a Christian. A death of a Christian is inevitable. A death of a Christian is acceptable. A death of a Christian is timely. A death of a Christian is honorable, like a sheaf of grain that ripens in season. You see, so it's not that this advice is wrong. It's just wrongly applied. He was meaning well, and it's basically what he was ignorant of. He didn't understand that there was something more complex behind it. He was preaching a God that can be totally figured out, that there were no unknowns behind the scenes, that there was no drama in heaven. He didn't know what had gone down in Job 1 and 2, that there had been a court in heaven, that the devil was involved in this. It wasn't God's discipline. The devil had been involved. There was a demonic. He didn't know that. And so it's like his medicine, his counsel, was like poison to Job. It didn't encourage him because it was worldly. It might have been using biblical principles, but it wasn't correctly applied. Now, we get to John chapter 7, and Jesus finds himself in the company of his brothers, and his brothers say, listen, you want to be a public figure? Leave this place, man. Go to Judea. You can't be in Galilee. Go to Judea. Anyway, Jesus says to him, look, your time is any time. My time is specific. I'll go when I need to go. So he pitches up at this Feast of Tabernacles, halfway through the feast. And there's all sorts of stuff that happens there. The Jewish leaders are out looking for him. People are inquiring about him. And then he says, basically, my teaching is not my own. It comes from my Father. And then the Pharisees weren't happy with that. And Jesus then calls them out. He says, why are you trying to kill me? Why are you trying to kill me? And I'm just saying what I've said from the Father. And they said, who's trying to kill you? They're pretending like there's no one here trying to kill you. And then he began to speak to the people. And he talked about his death. He says, I'm going to a place where you can't come. And you'll look for me and you won't be able to find me. He was like talking in riddles and leading them to the point. And then he even said to them, when I go, I'm going to send my Holy Spirit. And he's going to come upon you, and you're going to receive water that will nourish you from the inside. And some of the people were saying, surely this man is a prophet. Surely this man is the Messiah. And the Pharisees have this deliberation. I want to just bring us to this last point here. That they want to now kill him. He said enough. He's claimed to be the Messiah. Nicodemus. Remember Nicodemus came to Jesus at night. Nicodemus puts up his hand. He says, does the law condemn a man without first hearing what he has to say. And they turned to him and said, listen, are you from Galilee too? Don't you know that the Messiah doesn't come from Galilee? So what we see here at the Feast of Tabernacles is Jesus presenting himself. He's speaking in a way no one's ever spoken before. And we see the Pharisees beginning to line up against him. The people beginning to wonder, is this the Messiah? And Jesus all the time is saying, I'm coming for a purpose. They're going to put me on a tree. And then I'm going to pour my Spirit out. It's Jesus, the Feast of Tabernacles, getting us ready for the real work of Jesus up ahead.